Hi, this is Denise Alston. Today we're going to learn how to make kitchari and ghee, the two basic elements for an Ayurvedic cleanse. We're going to start with the kitchari, which is basmati rice and split mung beans. You can buy these at a Indian store, Indian grocers. I just emptied the soaked beans and rice into a strainer, and now we're going to rinse them until the water comes clear. Rinse them in cool water until when you look through the strainer, the water runs clear. This just helps the extra starch to come off of the rice and the beans, and also helps them all to cook a little faster. All right. I'm going to bring these over here and set them aside because now the fun stuff starts. This is where we make the rice mixture, the rice and ghee mixture that will help to make the flavor of the kitchari. So, using 3 tablespoons of ghee, which is clarified butter, and we'll learn how to make that in a moment, into a pan heated about medium high, because we're going to saute all of the herbs in the ghee before the rice and the mung beans come in. So let's just take a look at what the mung beans and rice look like. Here's basmati rice. We're using a cup of basmati rice and a cup of split mung bean lentils. And we warm up the ghee and get it nicely melted. Now the first ingredient that we're going to put in here are black mustard seeds, another ingredient that you'll generally find at an Indian market. I'm going to reach across and grab my mustard seeds. And the trick for the mustard seeds is that they have to pop in order for their flavor to come out. It only takes about a minute for them to get warm enough to pop. We'll give them a chance to get warm. So if the mustard seeds don't pop, then their flavor doesn't open up. So they get warm, they snap open, the flavor enters into the ghee, and that gets their essence to come into the oil. I can hear them warming up, and oh, I just heard the first one pop. You can hear them, it's a great sound. So that was a teaspoon of black mustard seeds that went in there. Now the next piece that comes in is hing, or asafoetida. Now that's kind of an unusual herb. We don't see that around because it's from China. Next is a teaspoon of cumin seeds. We'll stir that around. Next is a cinnamon stick broken in 2, so we get the essence of that coming in. And then 6 whole black peppercorns. Oops. Oh. We toss a bay leaf in there. Now this recipe calls for an Indian bay leaf. I don't really know what that is, but I'm using our regular bay leaf. And then we have half a teaspoon of turmeric. You know, we always like turmeric. It's so good for us for so many different reasons. And we saute all these together for just a minute, just for their flavors to come out. Next, we're going to add ginger, garlic, and coconut. We add a teaspoon of fresh, peeled, and grated ginger, fresh, peeled, and grated garlic, and as fresh as we can get, coconut. So that was a teaspoon each of the ginger, a teaspoon each of the garlic, and then a half a cup of grated unsweetened coconut, which you can get. I got some at the health food store. You know, it's not the same as cracking a coconut of your own and grating it, but it's about as close as I could manage, and probably you too. Saute this for about 2 minutes. And then we add the mung beans and rice. I love cooking like this, starting with the herbs and the oil, and then adding like the substance, if you will, because this way the oil and the flavors of the herbs really get to sink into the beans and the rice. It's very fragrant. I wish I could do like a scratch and sniff video so you could smell this, but you'll get it when you make your own. So I mix and fold, trying to get all of the rice and beans coated as much as possible with the herbs, and letting go of the extra rice and beans. Oh good, they're nicely mixed. Now I'm going to add 5 cups of water. 5 cups of water makes this kind of a halfway between a porridge and a soup. We'll add in the first 2 cups. And stir that in. And right about now is when I'll add the salt. And this is 2 teaspoons of salt, but you know, I'm not a huge salt fan, so I'm going to do it a little bit shy of salt. A little bit shy of those 2 teaspoons. I'm going to mix that in, because you don't want it to be super bland, because you're not going to want to eat it if it's super bland. And then another 2 cups of water. Now, you could wait and see how this cooks up with just 4 cups. And then as it starts to cook down, you can double check, see if it needs another cup of water, and add the cup of water after about 15 minutes or so, once you see that the water's starting to get soaked up. We're ready to go now. We need to make sure this is going to come to a boil. So if you want to turn the heat up a little bit, that's fine. And then, you know, the rest of it is really like cooking rice. You bring it to boil, and then once it comes to a boil, you cover it and let it simmer for anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes. This, because it was soaked, it will probably only take about 20 minutes. And here we go. Hi, here we have the kitchari starting to boil rapidly. We've brought it to a nice swift boil, and now we're going to cover it, turn it down to low, and let it simmer until it starts to thicken up. We'll check back in with it in a little while. While we're waiting for that to cook, we're going to move over to making ghee. Now you recall I used ghee as the oil for the kitchari, and so now I'm going to show you how to make it. Ghee is basically clarified butter. It's butter that's been cooked and had the milk solids strained away from it. It has a lot of really great properties for digestion, and which is important when we're on a cleanse, for oleation, for helping to bring oil and ease into your digestive system so it's easier to eliminate, and for bringing fresh and safe flavor, that is safe from heavy cholesterol, into your diet. It's important that the butter is not salted, and of course it's preferred if it's organic, because we know that it's a little cleaner. We're not introducing new toxins into the body. As you can see, I'm working on a pound of butter because we can use it in so many things. And so I've chopped them up into good-sized chunks. I'm placing them into a heavy bottom fry pan. You know, my preference is to use a cast iron skillet, but my skillet's not with me today. But this is a good, reliable pan. I've used this a lot too. I keep the heat around, well, I have an electric stove, so I keep the heat around number 3, whatever that might be for you, because it's just hot enough to really melt the butter, but not enough to burn it. So this butter is going to melt, and then we'll come back to it once it's starting to boil up a little bit and start to separate the clear oil from the milk solids. Let's take a look at the kitchari now. Oh yeah, it's been going for about 15 minutes, and it is getting a little dry, but this isn't a bad consistency, but I want mine to be a little bit wetter in the final feast. So I just folded in a cup of water, and we're going to let it sit for a little while longer on a real low heat. Everybody's stove is different. This came along well on low. Cover it up for just a little while longer. And the ultimate test is to take a little bit and squeeze it against the side of the pot. That, if it mushes down, that shows you that the beans and the rice are done. So this is done, but I want it a little softer, so I'm putting a little more water in and letting it cook for maybe 5 more minutes. To start working with the ghee. So what we see after the butter's been melting for a little bit is that there's a bit of a white coating on the surface, which we will be taking off. And you'll also see a little bubbling coming up from the bottom. That's a good sign. That means the separation of the milk solids, which you see on the surface, is starting to happen from the pure oil. So with a wooden spoon, we'll be kind of collecting the milk solids off the surface, skimming it off. And as you see, as it gets skimmed off the surface, it's starting to get clearer underneath there. This is kind of painstaking, but it's worth it. The more it cooks, the more sort of solid and easier it is for for this top surface to come off. And you see I'm just skimming the surface. We don't really want to stir this. This isn't about stirring it up, because then you'll start mixing the bottom with the top. And we really want to keep them separate. I'm going to take a pause and clean off my spoon a little bit with a paper towel, just so we can get a fresh start with skimming these solids off the top. It's got a nice slow boil. This is on about, oh, I don't know, 5 or 6 on this stove, which means nothing to you, I know. But this is like a low, medium low. It's starting to boil a little more, which is good. The more it boils, the more it cooks off the milk solids. You know, when the milk solids cook away, like it's doing now, and separate, the actual oil of the butter, the essence of it, gets very, very clear, and like I say, a very safe form of oil. So here's where the cholesterol is in this white part. Here's where the part is that can not be healthy for you. What's getting left is a nice clear oil that has been used for centuries, if not millennia, by the Indian people for cooking. What's good is that once the milk solids come off, it actually doesn't spoil. You can keep ghee on your shelf without refrigeration for years, because there's nothing here that's going to go bad. It even stays fresher than olive oil. You know, if you don't refrigerate olive oil a little bit, it'll get a little rancid. That doesn't happen with ghee. Now, one thing with ghee that you do have to do, you have to be very careful. Don't ever double dip in ghee. So don't dip into some other substance and then stick your spoon into your ghee jar, because that'll make it go bad. So you're really kind of pristine when you're working with your ghee. So I'm going to continue to skim this off and let it cook, and then come back to it in a little bit. Hi, we're back with the kitchari for just a moment. Look, it's done. And this is what you'll be eating during your few days of mono diet, or the center of your cleanse. Now, in the early phases, you can add vegetables to this. So like a little bit ago when we added water, you could have, in addition to the water, you could have chopped up some asparagus, or broken up some spinach leaves, or even some thinly sliced yams or carrots, and folded them into the kitchari and completed the cooking. And that way you would have had a heartier side dish, for instance, that you could have served with your families, served to your family, as well as use it for the early stages of your cleanse. But this is the essence of what you'll be eating during the cleanse for your 3 meals, and it's done and it's ready to go. And so is the ghee making some progress. You saw me skimming that layer off the top. It's gotten thinner and easier to take off. You see that you can now see clear through it, which is a great sign that it's just about ready. And what you want to make sure is that you don't leave it on the burner long enough for this bottom part to get brown, because that means it's burned a little bit. Now, some people like it to have, because it makes a little toasty sort of flavor to it. But since we're newbies to this, we want to play it safe and leave it nice and clear all the way to the bottom. We're going to turn it off, set it aside for a couple of minutes while we go over here and get it ready to be strained. So we can come over here where I've prepared a nice fine grained sieve or strainer with a layer of cheesecloth over it. We will use that to filter the ghee into a glass container, And I always like to do a double filter, so I'll filter it again and put it into this Pyrex measuring cup, all glass, because you don't want anything melting, either metal, which is safe, or glass, because we don't want things to melt and burn. And we're going to bring the pan of ghee over now that it's had a chance to sit for a little bit. Here we go. Beautiful. And now we're gonna very carefully pour the ghee slowly as you can manage, through the cheesecloth. And we're gonna set the pan aside. I have some very able assistants working with me today, and I appreciate them very much. So that's the first round. So let me take this up so you can see. So you can see there's still a little frothiness there. The next round is going to take that little bit off again. So I'm going to cut off another piece of cheesecloth. That's why I like to take it through a couple of times. Put it in the strainer. Well, then it gets really dicey, because then we've got to get it into the little make sure it's right over top of the glass container. Pour it through as slowly as you can manage. Beautiful. Now you're going to get a chance to see what clarified butter looks like. Nice and clear. I'll pour this into some glass jars. It will keep for a long time. Before I use it, I'm going to let it get hard. It will harden. Here, I can show you what it looks like sitting on a shelf. So it hardens into a nice pale yellow. And like I said, you can use it for as long as you need to. Ghee and kitchari are two fundamentals of an Ayurvedic cleanse. Thank you very much.